First type of pivot that you generally see is people who, business owners reframing their products and their services, their skills and their expertise for their customers. I think that Dexter Deli one is a really neat example. I think Dexter Deli and Two Birds there, they obviously know that they've got a great menu. They've obviously got customers who love their beer, they love their food. And so it's a question of, okay, how do I reframe it? And reframing it as a temporary deli, or for Two Birds, reframing it as a drive-through, that's a really easy pivot. That would have, that doesn't take very long at all. It doesn't need its own website. It doesn't need its own domain name. It doesn't need its own staff. It's more just about going, okay, my customers now can't go out for dinner. How do I reframe my products and services more like a grocery item rather than like being an event or a night out? Second category here is businesses who find new customers with new pain points. I reckon the Gypsy Hub hand sanitizer example is a really, really good one. They've taken their asset of their stills and gone, how do I find someone else with a pain point? What we saw from a lot of brewers and distillers was the person with a pain point was hospitals. So I can't speak for Gypsy Hub. I know that Shane Warne he's got a gin distillery, and they switched to making hand sanitizer exclusively for hospitals in Western Australia. So you wouldn't think that a gin distiller has too much overlap with hospitals, well, not intentionally at least. But what they've seen is this is a person, this is an organization who is now short on something essential. We have the means to provide it. We can then convert our assets to produce a new product that's really valuable for a new customer with a new pain point. And the third category is a very large pivot, which is when you try and transform how you're seen in the broader market. So, for example, if you've got someone like a Two Birds Brewing, for example, this would be like if they decided that we sell some T-shirts on our website, and then switching that to we want to be seen as a T-shirt company first and foremost. For others, I'd say it's things like, so for Two Birds, it's their decision to be seen as a B2C business. So rather than stocking your products in pubs, you now want to become a household name. That sort of transformation is doable, but it won't happen quickly. So while some of the examples we've seen are able to set up their new pivot within a matter of weeks, changing how you're seen in the broader market is probably more like a 12 to 24 month journey before you start seeing real results. Long story short, I like all of these. I think they're all potentially really good ideas, but it's just helpful to keep in mind, what sort of pivot am I trying to do? Am I adding new items to my menu, or am I trying to completely overhaul my brand and my perception? So if we go to the next one, I've got an example of some tools that will help you with your thinking. So this is a tool called a value proposition canvas. I'm not going to go into great detail for it now, but suffice to say, the value proposition of your business is made up of two things. You've got a customer with a genuine need, and you've got a product that gives people something they're going to love. And when you start thinking about where could I pivot, what could I change, my first suggestion is to use a tool like a value proposition canvas and start to look at what could I tweak on the product side, or who else would see a need on this on the customer side. It's often a really neat starting point. On the next slide, we have an image called the 3 lenses of innovation. This is a really simple way of assessing the strength of a business idea. You want your pivot to be both desirable to a customer, feasible for you to run, and financially viable for you to continue trading. And if you look at the examples we saw earlier, they've ticked each of these 3 boxes. So for someone like a Flowers Vazette, what we've seen is they've gone, we think there's desirability in being able to deliver fruit and vegetables. We think it's feasible because we've already got a great supply chain and a great logistics setup. And they've seen that that example is just financially viable enough to manage to keep going. So that might be an example where the aim isn't to make millions and millions of dollars, but the aim is to keep the lights on. So as long as your pivot can start to address all 3 of these, you go, okay, I think there's some potential here. I'm going to take it to the next round of testing. The next round, of course, is a tool we highly recommend called a business model canvas. So the business model canvas is 9 boxes. Long story short, it's the same 3 things, just in more detail. So you want to start to brainstorm, who might my customer be? How might I get in front of them? what's the compelling reason for them to give us a try? And then on feasibility, we can look at, okay, what are the resources and assets that we already have that allow us to serve our customers so well? Who might we partner with? Who can we get alongside? What would a typical week in this business look like if we were to start selling this different product or service? And then viability is all about the dollars, and that's looking at where would our money come in, where would our money get spent, and is there a surplus left over at the end of the day? What I often recommend people do along with this is it's a creative thinking process called can-if mapping. So on the next one, I've got an example of what a can-if map looks like. The reason we find this really helpful is that I would bet that for all the examples we've looked at tonight, when the lockdown hit, their first thoughts probably would have been pretty bleak. And the first thought would have been, we are a restaurant, how are we supposed to operate without customers? Or if it's going to, we sell flowers to offices, no one's going into the office anymore. Or we need pottery wheels in order to serve our customers. And your brain is often great at generating creative reasons why things are terrible. And what a framework like this one does is it helps you start to override that by starting sentences that define what would it look like for this to be a good idea? How might we be able to serve our customers without them leaving their house? What else could we offer them that they would love to buy? Not us twisting their arm, but people would genuinely enjoy. And these are a series of prompts. So if you Google a can-if map, you'll be able to see some more details on this. But it's things like, we can if we remove blank to allow us to blank. We can do it if we access the knowledge of. We can do it if we resource it by. And it just forces your brain into really positive ways of going, okay, what are the conditions under which this might be a great idea? Not just to get through the next few weeks or to get through the next few months, but how might this be something that our customers really love and appreciate longer term? Another tool that I find really helpful for thinking about your pivot idea is this one here. It's called The Dip. It comes from a book from an author called Seth Godin, who I really, really like. And this is where we start to look at, okay, I've got an idea for a pivot. Do I want to commit the time, the money, the energy, the attention to making this work? What we tend to see with a lot of things in life is that your results and your effort tend to follow this general curve pattern. So if you've ever tried to learn a new language, or if you've taken up a new hobby, or you've tried to learn to cook, or I think for a lot of people, perhaps this is your sourdough bread making experience. The first day where you decide to go out and buy the Le Creuset pot is a magical experience. And then that 5th, 6th, 7th loaf that just isn't rising properly can be quite disheartening. And there's a moment here in the middle where things aren't seeming to get better, even as you put in more effort, that you have to stop and look at it and go, do I think this is worth pursuing? And the question of do I think this is worth pursuing is based on two things. The first one is, on the right-hand side, we're asking, do I think it gets good again? Do I see a scenario where this becomes a really valuable part of my business? And then the second question is, how far away is that? How long are we going to have to persevere with this new pivot before we start to see those results? And I have one more tool to introduce. I know this is sort of mental overload, but these are all free to access. You'll find lots of information about them online, just ways of prompting your thoughts and testing your ideas. This is called a test card from a group called Strategizer. And all it is 4 simple questions at the end of any brainstorming session to go, okay, here is my assumptions, here are my ideas, here's what I believe. So this is where you go, we believe that there is a genuine opportunity to start making and selling scrubs for hospitals who are going to be overwhelmed. And then what the test card does is it forces you to go, okay, how would I verify that? So it might be to verify that and it might be, we're going to pitch our idea to 5 hospitals and we're going to measure how many of them place an initial order. And if we can get 2 out of 5 hospitals to place an order of at least 20, or it might be, we're going to spend a weekend doing mock-ups and we're going to then take them to the hospital, and the amount of them who accept an order at this price point, that will verify if there's a genuine opportunity here. So again, this isn't meant to be disheartening by any means. It's just a way of sharpening your thinking. I like using these tools in combination with each other. So we've got tools like can if, helping us see that the glass can be half full and there's lots of different options for our business, but also then going, okay, my assumptions are just guesses. How can I confirm if these guesses are correct? That's all from me. I'll hand back over to Carlo and Geert.
Thanks, Isaac. Yeah, thanks so much. Obviously, these slides, I understand, same as last time, these slides will be shared through Stephanie. So you'll have a copy of at least high level all of the tools that Isaac's just shared. So it's now my pleasure to introduce Geert Hendricks, the founder and CEO of Farmwell. He started the business in 2016. Farmwell is an agri-food tech startup that designs urban farming technologies and experiences to enhance fresh produce accessibility in the city. In the constant developing world, the need for more efficient and sustainable sustainable ways of living is rapidly becoming a must. Farmwell is a response to this call to action. Thanks for meeting with us, Geert. You've recently been working to quickly pivot your business, so it's really great to have you here today to share your story with other Darebin businesses.
Yeah, good evening, everyone, and yeah, thanks, Carlo. Thanks for having me, and thanks for Darebin Council to create the opportunity for this conversation.
Look, to sort of, I guess, to dive into it and to sort of set the scene, do you want to just start off by telling us a little bit about the genesis of Farmwell in the lead to, like, in the lead up to COVID-19, to set the scene?
Yeah, so Farmwell is an agri-tech startup, as Carlo said, and we've last couple of years we've been developing the systems to grow food indoors and to add value to our environments, but also our living spaces. And the journey we had pre-COVID was one where we initially were offering our farmwells to hospitality to provide fresh, delicious microgreens to local chefs. Later on, we pivoted towards the corporate space, where we learned that the benefits were mostly in the experience of greenery and the effects that it had on our well-being. So in the time, in a couple of months pre-COVID, we were predominantly active in the corporate space, offering farmwells to office floors and engaging employees with different challenges to increase their nutrition, to eat more greens, but also to learn about different ways of growing food indoors. We were still active in hospitality on a very low priority, but yeah, due to COVID, boats came to an end. Oh, not to an end, to a freeze, so to a standstill. Yeah.
So pivoting was not something that was unusual to you. You'd kind of done this a couple of times. You know, you'd done this before. I guess you had that element of sort of flexibility and sort of malleability to the business model anyway, and just in terms of thinking. Now turn the clock forward to January 2020. If you think back to when COVID, started, what was it like for you, and what changes in behaviours did you see? Were you seeing in the market at that time?
Yeah, for us, I think the feeling I can definitely recall is, just not another challenge. I think for the last couple of years we've been jumping hurdles one after the other, so we're quite well trained in adapting and having that energy to do that. But I was feeling that we were just about to stabilize a little bit February, March, with a couple of larger projects on the books as well. We were planning to build a rooftop farm in a corporate office in Sydney and an indoor farm in another corporate office in Sydney. Yeah, and both projects fell through, and basically everything had to re-looked at from scratch. So it's just when you're kind of feeling that you're getting that momentum up, everything changes again. So yeah, it's a feeling of, wouldn't say despair, because but it's more like, yeah, another challenge.
Yeah.
And looking back at it now, yeah, it's definitely one that's made us stronger and better.
Yeah. No, thank you. It sounds as though, knowing your story relatively well, it sounds as though it's been like challenging time, and seeing you come through, is obviously testament to the amount of work that you've done. I mean, at the time, you also started seeing other changes in behaviours. No, I mean, part of the change in your business model was a reflection of change in appetite, or what you were seeing.
Yeah, absolutely. What made our business, what was really good for our business is that the market actually started valuating the process of growing food a lot more. So the empty food shelf, the empty shelves in Coles, and the run on toilet paper and seeds at Bunnings, etc. Created an awareness that food can actually run out within a matter of days, and that growing your own food, or at least knowing how to, in case you have to, has certain values that we've undervalued for the last 20 to 30 years. So people have gone back to the post World War II thinking of the victory gardens, and have started appreciating the thought of urban agriculture a lot more. Also spending our time at home with our kids having to be homeschooled, and having to decorate our home office. One, it's like, we're looking for well-being activities at home, from puzzling to with gardening and indoor plants. They all become more valuable. And also in engaging our kids into activities that are away from the screen, but also not necessarily outside the house, because we need to stay within that framework for a specific period of time. So I think for us, what's changed is that what we've been doing in the past had an additional value to bring in this new world.
And then talk us through the pivot then.
Yeah, so observing the markets, and also initially we went back to our corporates, to trying to turn our offering for corporates into an online model, which wasn't successful because we had no ear. No one was listening. Everybody was all of our customers were in cost-saving mode. Nobody was making decisions. Nobody wanted to hear about anything positive. So yeah, really taking that on board, that our existing customers were just a write-off for a specific time, even though we could see a lot of potential of what we could offer for them. There was just no listening ear that would actually consider new opportunities or new innovations. And still till today, it's very hard for us to get something across in those areas. But yeah, then looking back at our offering, we already looked at a potential home model, but we didn't want to spend too much time on that for a couple of years to come, because of the intensity of developing a model and program like that. But because now the whole team had a new sense of or new regained amount of time, was a perfect opportunity to actually build a prototype and see what we could put together.
Mm-hmm.
And very quickly, that prototype started showing its potential under the feedback we were receiving from people and from the market. And yeah, within 2 to 3 weeks, we basically created a framework and an initial model that we would use to teach people at home about the Farmwell methodology.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, we didn't have a second to lose because of the time frame and how long it would take to develop that. So yeah, it was making a decision and all systems go. Yeah,
that's cool. So you start out, a few months ago working particularly focused in corps. You see that starting to slow down, and you have an idea that potentially there's going to be a significant hurdle approaching within lockdown. You start recognizing that there is this change in consumer demand for, particularly as people being at home, in terms of healthy eating and nutrition, etc., or a focus around those areas. And then quickly you test in market and develop a business to consumer offering where you'd previously been offering B2B, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Amazing. And so, like, what does the next phase then look like for Farmwell?
Yeah. So this is where, yeah, what Jacob touched on before on pivoting or persisting. Like for us now, we're looking back at what we've learned since the start of COVID, since mid-March, or since COVID really started affecting us mid-March. And we're actually tying that back to our mission and our vision and our goals and the values we have as a team as well.
Yeah.
Without actually losing sight of our existing customers we had beforehand.
Mm-hmm.
So we're actually, what we've done in the last couple of months, added so much value to what we can now, again, listening to the markets, the 1st of July, suddenly corporates and businesses in general, councils, everybody that's dealing with employees working from home, they've looked at new ways to engage with them. There's bigger problems now, that how do we keep our staff engaged at home?
Yeah.
How do we look after their mental health and physical well-being? And how do we keep their kids engaged so they don't distract them too much from working?
Yeah.
So all those problems that have arisen, we've paid attention for in the last couple of months. And now basically our home offering also becomes the solution for our corporate offering. And as we now in the next couple of days, new budgets will be taking over into the new financial year. Even though businesses have stopped spending on a lot of nice to haves.
Yeah.
The nice to haves that actually contribute effectively to well-being of their staff at home, and things that contribute to the ergonomic lists of the home office. There's actually new budgets being released for that. So
fantastic.
If we look, like I liked it a bit of recreational sailing at times. And if you look at when you're doing a sail race, you're taking regularly towards the point in the dip, but you're still going against the wind in the same direction. So I feel like even though we pivoted, it's pivoted back around and brought us back to where we were, with a much stronger value proposition and a much stronger value proposition that is adjusted to the current times, but also a lot more resilience. And our program for people at home is called the Resilience Growing Program. But as a business, we've grown really resilient in the process, because not only has it opened up our B2C market, but it also opened up our market with education and with schools.
Yeah.
And the program that we've created has added a lot more value to what we can educate on and what we can deliver than we've had before. And in the meantime, it's strengthened the team. We've got an amazing culture going because we've all worked really hard together and achieved a great result. So it's from that point of view, keep observing the market and keep listening to the customers and adjusting the business model. Doesn't necessarily mean that you have to drop everything else, but you stick to your vision and your mission, and you stick to what you believe in and to your values. That doesn't change. That never changes. But the road towards your goal and towards where you want to gets a bend, and you have to follow that bend to get back on the road. I think like the detour for the roadworks.
Yeah. I really love that that analogy of the tacking as well. To me, that kind of stands out as something that I think a lot of businesses can relate to as well. That concept of moving left, moving right, having to negotiate obstacles. And you're right. The vision and mission is your compass, right? It kind of helps to hone where you're heading. Gert, thank you so much for your time and insights tonight. I'm just conscious that we're getting close to 7 o'clock and just want to make sure that we've got some time if anybody's got any questions. Gert, I might ask you then one question. If you could, based on your journey through COVID, what's one piece of advice that you would offer others in the room?
I think change always happens, and I think it's going to happen a lot quicker with the current economic climate and the climate change and all this kind of thing. So it's like, as businesses, we've got to become we have to become athletes in how quickly we can adapt to change. So this is a good exercise. So keep looking for the opportunities. Mm-hmm. And I think the biggest one in all of this, and that maybe refers to the question that just popped up of what do you think about starting a new business now? There's heaps of opportunities out there, more than ever. There's more problems that need solving. It's going to be the best times just to start new ideas and new concepts, because there's more and more problems that need to be fixed. And on top of that, I would say, don't wait till things are perfect, and run with it and learn quick and adapt. Yeah.
Great. Thank you. The question to the group is, what do you think about starting a new business now? I think, Anna, like, without understanding what the business idea is, I would say that what we're seeing through tonight is that, like, in times of adversity, there are opportunities. So I would say probably I would need to know more information about what it is that the business, what business you're intending to actually to begin, and whether or not now is the right time to be doing so. But depending on what need it's providing, some sort of what need it's filling, or what job you're intending to do through that particular business, and what supports might be available for you at the moment in terms of starting a business. I know that there are significant supports that are available for new businesses that aren't available at other times, particularly around employment and job creation. So happy to have a conversation with you offline afterwards, if you like, or happy if you wanted to share more information with the group.
Can I also add something to that, Carlo?
Sure.
I reckon it's a terrible time to start a new business. I think it's an amazing time to test a new business.
Sure.
Like, when you think about the amount of resources that you have to commit to deciding to launch something, it can be quite overwhelming from a mindset perspective, let alone a financial perspective. Testing a new idea, though, this is an incredible time to do it, because you've got so much change and so many preconceived ideas are going out the window. And a great example of that is, I really like what that ceramics, what did you call it, Tyler? Well, I like their idea of going, you can't do pottery online. And it's like, actually you can. You've seen other groups like ourselves do things like, you can't run an accelerator online. Actually you can. And so there's a lot of things that are suddenly not as true as they used to be. And the tools that we have for testing businesses are really neat and impressive and allow you to gauge market interest without spending lots of money. I think it's an amazing time for that.
Thanks, Isaac. Look, I think to Isaac's point, what a great time to test. There's a range of different tools that are even being used tonight to be able to help to test whether right now is the right time to be starting a business. So start thinking about your business model, start thinking about the customer segment, start testing with people to understand if there's appetite in the market. And now is like to Isaac's point, it's an amazing time to be testing in market right now. Thanks so much for having us. Really appreciate it. Thanks to everybody for coming this evening.